This is Jacqueline with Sound Body Wisdom. Welcome, welcome, welcome. In this episode, I wanted to share about this thing called resilience. I know that many of us, myself included, are leaning into this resource for ourselves right now. And so I thought it would be helpful to share a bit about it. You may have heard of this thing called resilience before, and maybe you have an intimate sense of it or a general sense of it, or you're not even sure what it means. So I'm going to offer a little bit more in particular when it comes to our navigating major stressors in life or exceptionally painful events or trauma events. And resilience can sometimes be maybe misunderstood, maybe misinterpreted. For example, the idea that resilience translates into maybe sweeping issues or events or feelings under the rug, or that it's a matter of not feeling at all and toughening up or numbing out. But resilience, it's more of a process and a resource, right? It's a resource for how each of us can adapt to difficult or challenging life experiences, especially through our emotional and our mental flexibility, and really adjusting to both the internal and the external demands. There's a great example of resilience in nature that I personally love, and that's trees, right? They're strong yet flexible. They can move with the push and the pull of high winds, and they can adapt to extreme temperatures, environmental changes. And that's the key piece, right? The adapting aspect. That's central here. Because as we know, life and circumstances, they will always change. And while resilience is a term often used to describe what it takes to overcome, and I understand why we reach for that word, that's not always my favorite way to frame it. And I feel like it entrenches the idea it's something fixed or a destination that we're supposed to just get past. And again, resilience is a resource in this process. It's how you meet and how you move with circumstances. So there are many factors that can shape our personal resource of resilience, right? It can depend on the unique circumstances and the challenges at hand, or historically, it can be shaped by genetic components, like so many things, environment, social support, societal factors, lots of societal factors, and so much more. And really, most people, we have a natural resilience there, right, within us. And there's also ways we can develop our resilience or nurture this resource within us. There's a 2011, there's a research article in Sage Journals, and I love this quote. They said, "There's a dynamic nature to resilience across a lifetime." Wow. It underscores the nature of it as a process, and that it's evolving and something that grows and changes, and it moves with us through our lives. And you might be wondering, or maybe it really isn't obvious, why resilience would be important for us. And so, as I shared at the beginning, resilience, it's a factor in our process of adapting to difficult events, to traumas, challenges, extreme challenges in our lives. So it's not just a buoy to stay afloat, but it can guide us. Resilience, it helps our sense of self. It helps developing how we see ourselves. It helps us to see possibility. And it helps us to nurture ourselves through difficulty. And in some ways, I think it allows us to have some vulnerability as we allow ourselves to feel emotions and stay connected to other people, supportive people. And resilience can also it can help us stay focused and flexible, like the tree, right? We're connected to our center, but we're being flexible through the circumstances. And it can be protective. It's a protective element when it comes to our overall mental health in relation to the difficult events or whatever is taking place. It's there with us as we navigate whatever the situation or whatever the circumstance. So really, resilience, it supports us. It supports us handling adversity and struggle without becoming completely overwhelmed, without our systems becoming just completely overwhelmed. It helps us with developing or reaching for our supportive coping mechanisms and to not dwell on the difficulty or sometimes not engaging in those less than healthy or the harmful behaviors. And this is not putting on rose-colored glasses, right? Or ignoring. It's understanding the difficulty, understanding the pain of the event, the challenge, and to feel all the feels. And maybe that needs to happen little by little in titrating, but to feel the feels, work with your mental outlook, move through the experience with the thoughts and with the feelings. In the wake of anything from smaller difficult events to significant traumas, resilience is your ally. So how do we be the tree, right? How do we develop this resource of resilience? So there are things you can do. But first, I want to say that since, we all adapt and we all process events differently, in my opinion, there's just no space for comparison because there's not a way of doing it right or wrong. And there's no space for shame or blame around not being the version of resilient that you'd like to be or that someone else is telling you should be. So I just want to remind you to be gentle and be wherever you're at as you're moving through whatever the events and circumstances are. And since I refer to trauma in this episode, I wanted to share a little bit about it, just an overview. Because over the last years, trauma has become more of a household term. It's used more frequently by people and seems like it's become more common in our everyday language and our narratives. And the positive aspect to this is that there is more awareness than ever about it and definitely less stigma about it. And then the challenge of it can be that our understanding of it can become potentially distorted or diluted. So I want to offer just a few working definitions of trauma, and each with just a little bit different language, just to offer more nuance or access or insight. So trauma can be understood as a response to an event where one's coping abilities they're unable to metabolize or to process the impact or the emotions of the event. It's when our stress response system is activated so intensely or frequently that the response we have shifts from adaptive to maladaptive. Right? It's any response to an event that overwhelms our system and it undermines our sense of safety. Right? The event is perceived as a threat to our safety. And the perspective that I work with is that trauma it's not the event in and of itself, but it's more our response to the event. There's an author and somatic practitioner named Peter Levine, and he's written that traumatic symptoms are not caused by the triggering event itself. They stem from the frozen residue of energy that has not been resolved and remains trapped in the nervous system where it can wreak havoc on our bodies. And I resonate with this, right? And it also, it underscores that trauma trauma is the response, right? Not the event per se. And that trauma is something that's unfolding within our mind-body complex, these things we call our bodies, right? Because events where we have a trauma response, they can lead to behavioral, emotional, and biological, physical changes in the body. And to go just a little bit deeper, it's not just events in our physical environment that can feel like a threat to our safety. Perceived threats and emotional situations that threaten our sense of safety can also lead to a trauma response. So it's in the physical environment, it's our perceived threats and emotional events or situations. And these can be collective events, right, experienced as part of a group, or an individual experience that you have. It can be singular and an isolated event, or it can be reoccurring or chronic events. And each of us is so unique, beautifully unique. And our response to events, it's shaped by our genetics, it's shaped by our history, society, the environments we've been in, and so much more. And because, our life and situations, they're always changing. Our nervous system and our inner landscape, they can also always be changing and adapting to the circumstances day to day. So variables are often shifting. So this is why two people can experience the same event and have two totally different responses. One might have a trauma response and the other not. And it's not a flaw in either of them. It's simply the uniqueness of the person, right? Our experiences, history, perception of the event, our systems. And we're actually designed to handle stress, right? Our nervous systems, these, I keep calling them, how incredible we are, but we are these incredible mind-body complexes that we are. Yes, we are designed for it. And as we've evolved and our worlds have evolved, the nature of stress and how we relate to it has also changed. And you'll notice I've invited the term stress in here, because there is overlap between stress and trauma. There's a bit of a give and take. So smaller or brief stressful events or stressors, they typically cause a very different biological response than when we have chronic stress or a trauma response. So in these smaller stressors, we recover, we regulate quickly from these. Because again, we are wired to navigate these stressors, stressful events, even more impactful events. But in our modern lives and the nuance of our history and the shifts in the inner and the outer environments, sometimes our natural and our adaptive response to navigating stress in these events, it can be interrupted or it can become challenged. And we see this when stress, it's becoming more intense or chronic, and how this can impact our health and our well-being because of the dysregulation to our system. And then this can also then inform how we respond to potentially traumatic events. Because chronic stress, with its ability to already dysregulate our nervous system, this can be a setup for how we respond to potentially traumatic situations. Both chronic stress and a trauma response can lead to this dysregulation of our nervous system. And this dysregulation can have a direct effect, and does have a direct effect, on our health in so many ways, as well as impacting our emotions, our behavior, our thoughts, and so much more. And to clarify, when we have a trauma response, this is typically identified, it's a response that lingers. It sticks around. It stays around past the time of the event. And it's a response that can and does cause more impact to our behavior, our biology, our emotions, our thoughts, and it causes actual changes to our nervous systems and a dysregulation of the nervous system that persists. And we can, and our bodies sometimes can recover on our own from trauma, right? And then sometimes we might need to bring our attention to helping ourselves to heal, or also getting support from others, or the different therapies that can help to unwind trauma in our bodies, our nervous systems. You know, our mind-body complexes are amazing, and I will continually exclaim that because I think it's worth saying over and over again. We are amazing. And the important element is to notice what you notice. I mean, I would say in general, to increase your awareness, to be present. But notice what you notice following a significant event or a potentially traumatic experience. Because while we can use different labels like stress or trauma, there is overlap and there's some blur on the ways where each of us will need to bring our awareness to the impacts, whether they're momentary, short-term, or maybe they're longer lasting, minimal or intense. Because you are beautiful, I'm beautiful, we are beautiful, and we're all unique. And what you may or may not need, it's going to be informed by all the various puzzle pieces of the inner and the outer experience and your response to it. Because remember, and maybe a recap would be great here, that as people, we experience events and situations that can be varying degrees of stressful, challenging, or potentially traumatic. And that for each event or situation, we're going to experience varying degrees of intensity, and this will have varying degrees of effect or impact on us. And the potentially traumatic events or situations can be a threat in our physical environment, they can be a threat in our emotional environment, or they can be a perceived threat. And how we experience and respond to those events or situations, it's going to be unique to each of us, even in the face of universally acknowledged events that are often considered to be ones that cause trauma, that they're considered to be traumatic. Even then, each of us will be different in how we respond, how we metabolize the event, how we move through the process of dysregulation back to being regulated. And while there are differences in the effects on us between, say, intense stress or an event where there is a traumatic response, our resilience is a part of what supports us to move forward through the experience and to adapt and grow. Okay, so there are things you can do to nurture and support your resilience. And I'm just going to outline a handful here and give an overview, not too much detail. And I encourage you to explore these or discover others because there are so many out there. So here we go. One thing that you can do is developing your ability to reframe negative thoughts. So this is really a practice of awareness and noticing where your mind is going, and then choosing to interrupt any of the negative thinking, any of the negative thoughts, or where our thinking can just go into a loop and on repeat, which means it's not allowing you to have other perspectives or be in the present moment. So awareness supports your ability to reframe thoughts and looking for the ways to be in your body and any possibility for other perspectives. And you're doing this while simultaneously allowing yourself to acknowledge how challenging or impactful the circumstances are. So it's not invalidating the impact of the event. It's being aware of any kind of loop or focus on the negativity. So you want to keep opening yourself to other perspectives while allowing yourself to move through what you're feeling and validating it. Okay, that brings us to another helpful thing you can do, which is getting support from others. Because feeling that we are seen and supported, it really, really matters. And this can be friends, it can be groups or a counselor or therapist or all of them. And yeah, just a non-judgmental space to be held and heard, seen and supported. And I know everyone has different circumstances and life circumstances. And while this can be really easy to say, it's sometimes one of the hardest things to find. But it is important because it really helps to move the emotional and mental energies so they don't get stuck or build up. And it helps us grow our self-esteem and our sense of self in relation to the event. So discussing with others, it can help us to gain insight around the challenges and about ourselves. So again, feeling heard and seen, not judged or lectured. It's also helpful to focus on what you can control, because it can be really easy to get overwhelmed by the things that were out of your control or are out of your control, still not able to control. You know, the voices inside wishing they could go back in time, change things, regrets. So instead, focus on what you can directly impact or take action with, how you can engage in a way in your life right now, in a way that offers a sense of agency or empowerment. No matter how big or small, look for those possibilities. Because for all of us, there are going to be things right now that are out of our control, out of my control. And with difficult and challenging events, there will be things that were out of our control. So in the present moment, never underestimate how incredibly potent it can be to find those moments, to feel empowered and be able to directly engage and take action. Which brings me to joy. Joy supports our resource of resilience. And, you know, while it can seem far away during difficult times or really intensely challenging times, it's there within us. Joy is there within us because these emotions, these energies, like joy or gratitude, delight, they're not just things, they're not existing outside of us, right? They can be stimulated by things that are external, but really they're experiences that live in our memories, in our bodies, in our cells. And so in many ways, we don't need to seek them out externally, even though we can and we will seek them out externally. But we can actually intentionally invoke them from within because they're ours already. They live in us. So to do this, you can find a memory of a time that you felt joy. And I know sometimes that's hard to do. So you can also focus on the sensation of joy. Even if you don't have a specific memory, see if you can focus on what you remember joy feeling like. Or you can absolutely just create it, the sensation of what you imagine joy might feel like in your body. And breathe life into it. Feel it. Yeah, with every breath, just let yourself go deeper into the sensation of it. Use your imagination, and your biology will follow. So whether you're focusing on a memory that you've had or your imagination for something that would bring you joy, or imagining How would this feel in my body? You bring it to life with your awareness, your intention, your attention and focus. Bring your breath, increase it, and your body will respond. Your biology will respond. And then the last thing that I'll mention, the last thing I'll ask is, how do you manage stress in general? And maybe that's easy to just kind of brush off, but developing healthy habits for meeting our day-to-day stress is so important, right? Because we're going to lean into these when bigger adversity comes along, when more difficult situations come along. So having those in place that we're using regularly for our hygiene, it's going to help. So as a part of this one, I'm going to sidebar into some of the things you can do for your daily practice in your hygiene around everyday stress. So there are some basics that I know you've probably heard of, which is things such as getting enough sleep, making sure that you're eating, nourishing yourself with food, making sure that you're hydrated, drinking water. And, those can sometimes, when we're stressed out, be the first things that fall away or feel a little bit out of reach. So just a reminder to yourself that those are important. You can also move in your body. Often you'll see or hear people saying, well, exercise, which often we think, oh, we have to do a workout. And I'm telling you, just move in your body, even if it's taking a walk, but moving in whatever way that you're able to be mobile or have movement. Move your body. Also, deep, slow breathing, being present and focused with your breath. There's no right or wrong way to do this. Just deep, slow inhales, slow exhales, and just focus on the sensation and the sound. You can also do some writing. I know some people really resonate with writing and others less so. But being able to write the thoughts and the feelings down, it can help to create a space and get outside of over intellectualizing. And especially when you just free write. So this is allowing yourself to just write whatever comes to you. Just let it flow to the page. Letting go of thinking. This physical act of writing it can help to give you perspective, and it also can create a sense of release. You can do things like singing or toning, just holding a vowel sound like A-E-I-O-U, creating that vibration of sound with your voice. It's an absolutely amazing tool for stress and also connecting into your body. And while it might seem counterintuitive, laughing, stimulating yourself to laugh and to smile genuinely, even when it feels difficult. It changes the chemistry in our body and can help really counter the impact of stress. And whenever possible, be in nature. Connect to the trees, to the plants, the ground, the earth, right? The dirt. There's so many reasons being connected to nature reduces stress. And probably too many to name here, but I will share that it has the ability to calm our nervous systems. It can boost chemistry and chemicals like endorphins within our bodies. It creates a sense of space, connecting to something greater than ourselves. There's this sense of connection, and it can lower our cortisol and our heart rate and our blood pressure and so much more. So yes, connecting with nature in whatever way that you can. Develop that relationship. And with everything, remember to be kind and soothing to yourself. You can literally wrap your arms around yourself in an embrace. Use your hands to touch your body, pat your chest or your arms, offering comfort, care through touch. So these are some things that you can do and that can be a part of your daily hygiene for stress, for day-to-day stress. And having that good hygiene is something that you can lean into and supports your nurturing of your resilience. So whether you're reframing negative thoughts, getting support from others, or focusing on what you can control, invoking joy, or tuning up your habits and your hygiene for daily stressors, all of those, or exploring others that you might discover or already have for yourself. All of these are ways that you can grow your resource of resilience. In our personal lives, the internal and external, and the fast-changing world at large, there's a lot of information and change that happens and stimulus, events continuously. How situations and events impact us, whether that's physically, emotionally, psychologically, this amazing mind-body complex, we can't often predict it, but we can proactively develop and nurture our resource of resilience. We can choose some things that do help to support ourselves in the midst of these complex environments and stimulus, both internally and externally. Okay, as always, thanks for spending this time with me. If you have reflections or curiosities, please message me at soundbodywisdom.com. I invite you to check out earlier episodes of this podcast. The episode before this one, I was reflecting on and sharing about to see and be seen and the importance of how we show up for seeing ourselves and other people. Until next time, this has been Jacqueline with Sound Body Wisdom. Take care.